Hello, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I want to show you how to create dynamic named ranges. So you would typically use these when you have a decent sized data set, more than what I have here, and you want to do a lookup or a sum if that's based on multiple conditions or criteria. So search by product here and by month, let's say, and possibly even by state. And when you have lookups or sums by row and column, you can't use sum ifs. You can use sum product, or what I'll be doing here is sum wrapped around the if condition. So if, and then you have your row conditions where the rows match, star is and then your column condition. Okay, and where they match, we return the intersecting row and column within a specified data range. Otherwise, we're going to return 0, and sum will add them all together, all the matching ones. Now I'll show you that using the static formula. Now I'll just copy it down to here. All right, so what we have is sum if, and here we have the first product in G6 down to G15. So wherever that equals a selected product in our drop-down in C5, and our months in the headers, I5 to N5 equals a selected month in the drop-down C6. And then we return the data range here, I6, which is the first cell underneath January, to the last in June, N15. Otherwise, we return 0 and we sum them together. Now, as you can imagine, this is not dynamic because we got specific from and to ranges. So if I were to add an extra row here, we haven't picked up the new data. Total should be 1025, but we only have 510. So what I see done instead is the use of entire columns, such as this example here. All right, so sum if, same formula, except the range is entire column. The headers are the same, but our data range uses entire columns. Now, while this is dynamic for the rows, it's not dynamic for columns. So if we add extra months, it's not going to pick them up. But it's also quite slow. So you just keep your eye on the whole columns value here. I'm going to copy a row down, and you'll see there'll be a slight delay. 1, 2, 3. There's a slight delay. And as you add more data, it gets slower and slower. That's because it's looking up entire columns. Okay. And similarly, if I add an extra column here, just put some data in. Okay, and let's pick July. It's returning 0 because it's not including this extra column. Get rid of that column for now. Now I'm just going to comment this out because it does slow things down, and I'll just put it back to grey so we don't see it. Okay, so now I just want to show you how to use named ranges. Now these are going to be static ones. So what you would do is you select your from and to. So this is going to be our products. And once you've selected it, in the top left corner here, you can give it a name. I've called it SNR products and static name range products, and hit enter. Okay. And you can do the same with the headers. Put the name here. And the data, from to and SNR data. You can call it whatever you like. Alternatively, you select the range, click formulas menu, then name manager, and you click new and give it a new name here. And Excel should have put the correct address in there that you've selected. And then click OK. All right. Now the problem with these is that they're not dynamic, unless if you insert the data within the existing range. In that case, Excel will automatically adjust the formulas. I'll just show you the formula for using that. It's a similar thing, sum if, but instead of the cells or the columns, we just put in the named range. It's like an alias to the selected range. So SNR products and the headers and the data. Okay, and I'll just show you again, copy this down, and it hasn't updated because this one is not dynamic. All right, so how do we go about making it dynamic? Well, the first thing we want to do is define the last row, the last column, and the header. And we do the last row and column using formula that's quite well documented out on the web, so I don't want to take credit for it. And it's doing this lookup that searches for the value 2 inside this vector here, this array. I'll come back to 2 and the 1 shortly. So essentially it's looking up column G for non-blanks. It'll return true for non-blank rows and false for blank ones. So that array of trues and false get divided into that 1. And true is treated as 1 and false is treated as 0. So you'll have an array of ones and errors that divide by 0. Okay. Then the lookup will search for the value 2 in that array. It'll ignore the errors, and because it doesn't find a 2, because we have all ones, it will return the last value that is less than 2. And that's why we use 2, because you just need a number that's bigger than 1. So you could use 3, 4, 5. Okay. And so it's going to find the last 1, and that just happens to be our last non-blank row. And so since we want the row number, we return row of that column. Something to be wary of, whichever column you use as your lookup, you need to make sure whenever there is data that that column will always have a value in it. So in this case, I added a row, but it doesn't have a value in the product. So the last row lookup still thinks the last row is the row before. Okay. So if I put in a product number here, you'll see that the last row will now update to row 16. Okay. Last column is similar, except we look up row 5 for non-blanks, and we're going to return the column instead of the row. Okay. Similar concept. Now, as for the header row, we don't want to hard code the row, because if we insert a row above it, it doesn't change. So formulas that are using this will not update. All right, so instead we use this formula here, which is just simply the row of row 5. And because this is a reference, it will update whenever you do an insert or a delete. As you see now, it's changed to row 6. So now, how do we use these to make dynamic named ranges? Okay. So let's go to our name manager here. I've already created the headers one. I'll just copy it down here so you can see it. Now Excel automatically adds the sheet name prefix. So I'm just going to remove it from here just to make it a little easier to read. We don't need it in this particular case. So this is saying, I'll get rid of that to get rid of the data behind it. So this is saying start from G5, so the first header, 2, so the colon, to the cell that is returned by this index. So essentially it's looking up row 5, returning one row only, so it's only the first row of row 5, and it's returning column specified in I1, which is 14, the last used column. Okay. There you go. So it gives us from the first one to the last one. Now, if I was to add another one, it automatically adds it. There you go. Easy. And so what we do is you copy the formula. Now you don't add it to here like we did with the static named range. Instead, you come to Name Manager, click new, give it a name, and in this case you need to change the refers to in here and paste that formula in. Okay, and then click OK. Now likewise, we do a similar thing for product. Now the formula is slightly different, but similar concept. All right, in this case, we're going to have two indexes. I'll just get rid of that sheet reference again. And in this case, we have two indexes. So the from is now an index and the to is an index. So the from is looking up column G, and we're going to return the header row plus 1. So that's the first data row. Okay, and I'll explain to you why we do that in a second. All right, so the first data row and the second index looks up column G and returns the last row that's specified in H1. So product 1 down to product 4. Now the reason we're doing this rather than to get the first data row, rather than specifically reference the G6, the first data row, is if we were to delete the data, you would get a ref error. So if we had G6 here, it returns all the products, but if we were to delete this data, let's say we were refreshing the data with some new data, you get a ref error because that cell has been deleted. All right, so that's why we use this formula. Again, you just copy it and name manager, new, give it a name, and paste in the formula that you just copied in here. Click OK. All right. Now you can also do this using offset, but I try and avoid offsets where possible. But since it's only a couple of formulas, it's fine. If you had it replicated down many rows, then you got to try and avoid offset, as they're volatile functions which get recalculated anytime you make a change to the worksheet. Now, having said that, for the data range, I actually do use the offset. Otherwise, we're going to need to use an index inside of an index. Now, I just want to remove that sheet reference again. All right, and I'll just get rid of the equals, and you can see here, offset. So starting from G5, we want to move down one row. We don't want to move over a column, so 0. And then we want to say how high is, how many rows do we have? And we do this by doing the last row minus the header row. That's defined in H1 and H2. Okay. So that part will go from here, move down 1, and then give us this much. But we also want to know how far across to go, depending on how many columns there are. All right, so similar thing, we're going to use this part here, which says give me the last column that's specified in I1, which is 14 at the moment, minus the first column. In this case, it's G, so G5, our header, and then we add 1. Okay, so that is going to give us essentially from here, move down to here, extend this far down, and extend this far across. Okay, and then you just copy that, similar fashion, name manager, new, give it a name, and put in that formula. Okay. Now I'll just show you how this is dynamic in both ways. So I'm going to add another product, 1021, as you can see. All right. Now let me add an extra month. give it some data. Okay, and now we're going to pick July. And as you see, it's automatically added the two together for product 1. So there you go. That's how you can create dynamic named ranges. And the useful thing with that is that you can use these name ranges in other worksheets, and you don't have to repeat that offset formula or the index from and to formulas. You just refer to the name. And I'll give you an example. These list of products here, they come from this parameters worksheet, and it's using the name range product. So it's doing proper to force uppercase of the first letter, sort, unique to get rid of any duplicates, and NR products. That's our name range of products, which is dynamic. So if I was to just change this one to 5, as you can see, it's added 5, and our drop down automatically picks it up to, all right, 711, 711. That's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, please hit the like button, and we'll catch you on the next video.